Celaena, thank you for joining in.
Yeah, of course. Great to be here.
Celaena, I saw that you have a beautiful journey in which started your career as a young lawyer from law firms and moved on to in-house and now became a general counsel in Seismic. Tell me, how does a good lawyer become a great general counsel?
Ooh, it's a good question. I think for me and my own journey, it's been about learning the business because as a general counsel, our remit is so broad. We have a 360-degree view on the business. And so for me to be effective, learning the business, learning how we got here, learning the journey we've been on, why decisions were made, how they were made, what those trade offs were, and how everyone operates has made me successful because I'm better at my job when I have information and context. And I think getting that information and context early and often is a great way to show value early, but then also deliver good results that are durable and longer lasting for the business.
And they don't teach you that in the law school.
No, they don't. Although I did, I'll give a shout out to UCLA. I am a UCLA law grad, and I felt like I hadn't quite found my niche in law school. There weren't classes that really clicked for me, and I don't think that's uncommon. I think a lot of folks probably didn't sit down in property law and have a lot of fun, or rules of civil procedure and have a lot of fun. But for me, what actually got me in law school and got me really interested and set me on my journey was a class on entrepreneurship. And so it was taught by a business school professor who had this wacky idea that maybe some of the lawyers could be entrepreneurs and could be business leaders in the future. And so, why don't we teach them about entrepreneurship, starting companies? And when I took that class, that's really what resonated with me. And I dove deeper into that area, took additional courses on it, and that's where I ended up focusing. So I do have to give a shout out to UCLA for actually doing something practical.
Beautiful. But do you think all the law schools are so handy that they actually equip you for the real world? Because I did my law from India, and only about 30% of it is I'm using in my actual career, and 70% of things I learned actually in the job. Oh, what's your take on that?
I think law schools teach you how to think skeptically and think critically and to challenge and to understand the why. And I think that is a good skill. And I think in a lot of ways we use that all the time. So they train your brain. Now, do they teach you things that are substantive that you use every day? Probably not. Although I did, especially early in my career, use like the cap table skills I learned in law school, things like that. But for the most part, they're probably not the most practical, but they teach you to think.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. If somebody has to choose a career in 2025 between going and becoming a partner in a law firm versus becoming a general counsel in-house, how should somebody, a new graduate from law school, choose their career path?
Oh gosh. I'm a big believer that one size fits all is not the right choice for a career. So, whenever I counsel folks who are thinking about going to law school or thinking about what their journey could look like, I always share my journey. But then I say, you're probably not going to have this same experience because I happen to be in the right place at the right time, or maybe the wrong place at the wrong time. We'll see how this career ends up. Uh, but you never know. And you never know where people might fit in or take a chance on them. And so I'm super mindful of trying to give somebody broad sweeping one size fits all advice. I think
Mm-hmm.
if I think my advice would probably be um, find something in law school that attracts your interest. If there's nothing there, that's okay. But don't just chase the prestige or the money. Find something from a career perspective, something substantive that you think you could really sink your teeth into, that you could see a future in. Maybe that involves being in house. Maybe you say, I really want to work on films and in television, and that's my dream is to bring these things to life. Well, I saw a great role at one of the Disney studios posted today for a first year. that's great. I think that's a great opportunity. If what they want to do is go help movies get made, I think that's an awesome first job and you can go do that in house. If somebody says, "I'm not really sure. I know I want to make a lot of money and I'm willing to work really hard for it," maybe go do a rotational program as a first year at a large law firm if you can get it. And go try a bunch of different things. I don't know what the
Hmm.
right answer is. I think for me, I didn't want to be a partner. When I was in a law firm, I looked around and I realized that the prize for winning the pie eating contest was to eat more pie. So I decided to go in a different direction. But there are lots of people where that actually is a great outcome for them. And so I don't know. I'm kind of punting on your question because I don't think one size fits all here.
Okay, that's perfectly fine, Selena. But I know when I saw your career path, you became a general counsel pretty quick. People generally like 25 years or 20 plus years. Tell us the secret sauce.
Right place, right time.
Okay.
I think, yes, my career has been a rocket ship. I probably don't look like your typical GC. I became a GC as a fifth year associate. So I was at a law firm. I was at Gunderson Detmer, where I represented all sorts of different startups, as well as scale up companies. So think, a couple of folks in a garage with an idea forming a company all the way to exit and IPO. And while I was there, I mentioned I didn't think I wanted to be a partner after a little while of doing the job. And so I started to look at what going business side or what going in house would look like. And Seismic happened to be a client, and they didn't have a GC. They didn't really have a legal department. I kept telling them, "You need a GC, you need a GC." They were over 100 million in ARR. I sent them all of these incredible resumes. Think those 20 plus year GCs who had taken companies public or sat on public company boards. And I did this for years trying to help them. And eventually they called me and they said, "You know what? You were right. We need a GC, but the only person we want is you." So I switched. We had gone through a lot of really crazy transactions. My CEO was a fan of coming up with an idea that would be really, really hard and then seeing how fast I could do it, I think. But we did a lot of crazy things together. And I think through that, they saw somebody who was creative and had a lot of grit and determination and said, "That's what we want in our people." And maybe she hasn't done this exact job before, but she's done a lot of hard things, and so we think she could do this. And they took a bet on me, and I'm very appreciative of that.
Oh, beautiful. That's so great. That's so great. So, if you have to choose the toughest challenge of your career so far and how it changed you as a lawyer and a person, what comes to your mind?
Ooh, I think that there have been a lot of challenges that I faced along the way. I think every career has those. Uh, I have done some really difficult transactions. I won't go into great detail there. Maybe one day I could write a book on some of the crazy things that I've done. And those are really challenging because in the transaction, you're incredibly stressed out. And like I mentioned before, law school teaches you how to think like a lawyer. I think part of that is just being neurotic and paranoid that you made a mistake and constantly worried that something you do is going to ruin everything. And so I think that sort of internalization of I'm in a high stress situation, I can't mess this up, and the pressure that put on me was very difficult. But I look back and I think, dang, I was tough as nails and I rocked that. So I think there have been those situations where in the moment it was so difficult and so challenging and the pressure was so high. But when I looked back, I thought, yeah, I earned my stripes on that one and I'm a tougher person for it.
Beautiful, beautiful. You mentioned about stress and also about the partners and not you didn't want to become a partner in a law firm. One of the advice that I got was, Amit, make sure you do not pay too much for your money. Now, do you think lawyers in the US are paying too much for their money?
This one's tough. I do see, the rates go up and I want to scream and I want to reach through my screen and strangle the partners who thought that charging $1,000 an hour for first years to do doc review was a smart business decision. I do think that is insane. we've all, I've been a baby lawyer. I am deeply sympathetic to the plight. You're nervous, you're learning your skills. But I think it's ridiculous to assume that clients are willing to pay for the on the job training at such a steep rate. I'm not okay with that. On the flip side, though, there are folks who I am willing to pay a premium to spend an hour with them. And that's because I know in that hour, they will teach me so much. They will do it in a way that's organized, that is deeply practical, that resonates with my business. That in that hour, let's say it's a high end partner at a large law firm, and I'm going to pay 2 grand, which by the way is still insane. But let's say that's the situation. If I can utilize that person and get 2 grand and get the knowledge and the training and the skills out of them in an hour, I'm okay with that because there are some folks where it's worth it. But I think this is what makes the legal profession tricky is it comes down to the person and it has to be the person that's worth it. And it's hard to find those people. You do a lot of vetting, you do a lot of conversations. It's a services business, and so they've got to be worth the time, my time, and they've got to be worth that billable rate.
Hmm. And what about stress levels in the law firms versus stress level in-house? What are the sacrifices lawyers have to make to grow in their career?
Uh, I think, I think I had a lot of very stressful times at a law firm that sort of like transaction specific stress and that constant, oh no, what if I make a mistake? Um, I don't know that my stress level has gone down. So sorry to all the lawyers who are thinking about going in house. Don't become a GC. I think my stress level has only gone up, but it's different. The stress is not what if I have a typo here and what if my drafting isn't perfect. The stress is how am I running this business and am I doing right by the people who work here? Am I delivering shareholder value? Are these big decisions that I'm making on, frankly, a pretty regular basis? Am I doing the right thing here? Are my decisions correct? And I found that maybe that was one of the biggest changes from outside to in-house was when you were outside, you delivered advice and you said, okay, do what you want with it. You'd have dialogue, and then it would be up to the person that you were delivering the advice to make the decision and to own the decision and implement the decision. When I came to Seismic, it was jarring how often I was making decisions on a rapid fire, imperfect information basis. We were just moving so fast, and we needed, frankly, people to make decisions. And that was a big change in operating. And I think particularly in those early years, I was making a lot of decisions, and I was going from a role where you weren't decision heavy to a role where that frankly was my job. And I think that that took a bit of change. And I think that's where the pressure and the stress lies.
Hmm. Okay. What mistakes have you made in your career?
Oh my gosh, so many. I don't think we have long enough. Um, I think broad strokes, I think when you have the career that I've had and it has moved very quickly, there's an element of not being able to stop and pause and evaluate. Is this the right step? Am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? It's always been sprint, sprint, sprint. And so as I think about my journey, and of course there's little things, oh, you know what, I probably shouldn't have hired that person, or I think that was the wrong fit, or ooh, I approved that and maybe I shouldn't have approved it. There's all that happens all the time. I think my view is to give a lot of grace. The best thing I can do is make a decision. Most of the time, my decision is going to be the right one because I made a decision. But I think where I have it, where I've done myself a discredit is actually trying to sprint at every step of my career instead of taking those moments to pause and reflect. I graduated undergrad in 3 years because I thought that was the right thing to do. I went straight to law school and I took it really seriously and I focused on grades and all of that ended me up where I am, but I'm not, but maybe I should have paused and taken a moment to look around and to take a breath and to do something fun.
Hmm. Okay. And if you had to give an advice to your younger selves, Selena, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, gosh, not to take myself too seriously. It is, all of those things, all of that, I gotta be the best, or I have to really be top notch, or nobody will trust me, or I won't be able to have a seat at the table unless I'm really serious. Uh, I think I think I needed to loosen up, especially when I was younger. I think I'm a much more relaxed person now, despite the increased stress level. But I think when I was younger, I was very worried about what the future would hold. And if I could reassure my younger self that the future actually looks really bright and you're going to do a great job, I think she would have had more fun.
And why do you think, where did this belief come from?
Like the be perfect belief. I think that's just life. I think I was just wired that way as a kid. I always wanted to be the best. I think there's probably a separate topic with my therapist about why that was. But I think I just always wanted to be the best. I wanted to be able to be the person who, when she walks into the room, people respect what she says. I think I still want that, by the way. That doesn't change. I think the only thing that changes is I want to step into bigger and badder rooms and have that be the case. But I think for me, that's always been motivating to be that person who's respected, whose voice is respected. I care a lot about that.
And do you think it comes from a role model that you have been following? Is that should lawyers have role models and then try to emulate that kind of life and perspective?
Everyone should have role models. Funny enough, I don't know that I ever had like one role model. I think I had different people that I looked at and had a lot of respect and admiration for different things. So maybe I saw somebody who was able to have that presence, who walked into a room and everyone looked and trusted what she had to say. Or somebody whose career I think has just been really impressive, or somebody who I think has been able to have maybe more of that relaxed, nonchalant balance with a really impressive career, or somebody who's achieved greatness at such a scale that I could only ever dream about. I think that there are all those folks in our lives and that we see around us. And so for me, I don't know that there was one necessarily who drove me, but certainly probably a pantheon of role models or people to idolize and emulate.
Interesting. And are you now currently mentoring and guiding and coaching younger junior lawyers?
Yeah, I talk with younger junior lawyers. I also have mentors that are not lawyers. I actually would recommend for lawyers in particular to get mentorship from folks who are in a different career path from them, from folks who have taken different paths. I think that other perspective is really valuable. I myself am the beneficiary of great mentorship over the years, and I wouldn't be here without the mentorship that I've been given. And that, by the way, continues today. I don't think I'll ever be done. And I try to pay that forward in talking with folks who are maybe a little bit earlier in their careers or in different roles and want to make a switch.
And what personal sacrifices have you made to grow as a lawyer?
Um, I'm sure I've made a lot. There's certainly the social sacrifices, the friendships. I now have a fewer better model when it comes to my friends. I keep a tight knit circle of folks that I try really hard to maintain high quality relationships with. But the reality is, I have to keep that circle small because I can only devote so much time and energy. Certainly, I'm originally from Alaska. I don't get up there very often. I try to go once a year. All of those interpersonal things become sacrifices. I mentioned I graduated college early. Some of that was monetarily driven. College was expensive, and I needed to wrap things up. But some of it was I knew what I wanted, or at least I thought I knew what I wanted, and so I was ready to go for it. I probably could have taken another year and had more fun.
What does success mean to Selena?
I don't, I've been thinking about this question, and I don't know that I have a good answer because I think success looks different depending on the angle that you take it from. For me, success overall is probably living a rich life. And by rich life, I mean a life filled with rich experiences, rich relationships, high quality interactions and experiences, making lots of really good memories. And for me, that also means developing in a career and achieving things in my career that offer that. Whether that those rich memories exist in my job. For example, my ability to walk into a room and have my voice respected, that's really meaningful to me. That matters a lot to me. Interactions with folks who I never thought I'd be able to interact with, people I admire, those are rich memories and rich quality interactions. Or my ability to offer myself things outside of work. I have a ton of hobbies and I pursue them vigorously. I'm making up for some of that fun I probably lost in my early career. To me, that's what success looks like. I want to be able to be happy and do things that really resonate with me.
That's so beautiful. And lawyers in who are, let's say, in their early careers, like 20s or early 30s lawyers, they are like working hard and just making those numbers and 2000 billable hours and 2500 billable hours. They are paying too much for their money. They're missing their event, their spouse birthday party or a kid's birthday party. They're paying too much for their money. Is that a culture issue in the US with lawyers?
Yeah, I mean, it there's sort of that vicious cycle where you go to law school, you rack up a bunch of debt, and then you realize that the reason why you went to law school, which was maybe altruistic, or maybe you didn't really know why you were going to law school, but it seemed like the right thing to do, uh, forces you then to go into big law to pay off your debt. And so then you go to a firm where you're making a good amount of money, but then your lifestyle expands because you're working so hard. Suddenly you need all your food to be delivered because you can't go grocery shopping or you don't have time to cook. Or, okay, well, now in order to have children, I actually need a full time nanny, and nannies are expensive, so therefore I need to continue working in this environment. It is this crazy cycle. And I don't know what the answer is to that. I don't know if it's don't go to law school. That's probably not the answer. I do think that for a lot of folks, law school might be the right thing. Although, if anybody wants to be talked out of that, I'm happy to talk to them and try and talk them out of law school. I think I'm happy to give you the pros and cons. But I think that there are a lot of folks who lifestyle creep is a real thing and it is a real challenge and it keeps folks entrenched. I also think that for a lot of lawyers, we're probably a little bit of we're a little masochistic. We commit to the grind. We want to show off how hard we're working. That was always the thing in law school, right? There were gunners who wanted to be front of the class, who knew everything. Those probably translate into really, really good lawyers. I don't think I was a gunner, but I was always in awe of the people who looked like they knew everything. I think those folks probably like the grind. They want to show how many hours they're hitting. They want to show how hard they're working. And maybe that catches up to them eventually where they realize this was a mistake. But I think that there's a certain breed and we're built a certain way. Lawyers like to hustle, for better or for worse.
Hmm. Okay, very interesting. This is great. Tell us about your work in Seismic and what exactly are you focusing on? How you're ensuring as a general counsel? What's your role and what are you ensuring in the company?
Yeah, so Seismic is a late stage SaaS company and leader in revenue enablement where we make software that helps go to market teams crush their goals and do it more efficiently by making every interaction with buyers valuable, meaningful, and effective. We are based in San Diego. That's where we're headquartered, but we have offices in 8 different countries. And gosh, headcount wise, I think we're maybe around 1,300 employees, somewhere in that range, but don't quote me on that. We are, and we're on the larger side. We're approaching 400 million in ARR, and we sell our software into some of the biggest organizations in the world, big blue chip companies, financial institutions, big customers that are hard to land, but then once you land them, they stick with you forever. My role as a general counsel has really evolved over time to meet Seismic's needs. So when I first started, there wasn't much of a legal team here because we sell into big companies. What we sell is a contract, and that contract process is big and it's arduous. And so, really, what we needed when I started was a team to support revenue. But as things evolved, I was able to start to expand. Okay, well, supporting revenue also means building great products that look around the corner. So, building out the product counseling, the privacy components of our overall scope. I'm a corporate lawyer by background, so doing a lot of that corporate work, really building out a full stack department that can tackle the needs of a company of this size and scale. I think top of mind for me right now is the regulatory environment that we're in. We talk among GCs a lot about regulatory whiplash. Europe's doing something different than the US. How do you comply with both? Can you? US versus states, proposed bills, regulatory agencies. It's all over the place and it's on all sorts of different topics. And so we're in this environment right now where I need to keep the lights on and I need to continue to improve in those key functions. But I also need to have some flexibility in my schedule, in the schedule of my people to say, okay, something else new just came up and it's coming up fast. How do we react to that? So it's a very interesting time to be a GC. I was talking to somebody who said, hey, maybe it's job security. And maybe it is, but I think there's a level of what we used to have was regulatory change, but at a slower pace and a little bit more predictable. And now we're in this environment where you don't know necessarily what's going to come next, or you think you might have an idea of what's going to come next, but you're not sure if it's going to happen. And do I prepare? And it's impacting how we run our businesses. And so I think a lot of that is what's consuming us right now. How do we adapt?
Hmm. Hmm. That's pretty powerful. So Seismic gives you opportunity of working on a variety of things. If a younger lawyer has to choose between a company like of Seismic size with $400 million in revenue and let's say 13, 1400 employees versus going to a large corporate, let's say Google, I was talking to general counsel of Google as well. Uh, how should they choose? Like, what's the role difference between working a large corporate, let's say Google versus Seismic? What's the role differ? How does the role differ between of GCs?
Yeah, well, I'm currently hiring right now, so people should go apply for my jobs. I think in a smaller company, there's a lot more opportunity to have an impact. There really is. Um, a lot of times, I am not the person who comes up with every single brilliant idea impacting the legal team. A lot of the time, the best ideas that come up in how we operate, how we handle certain issues, how we triage risk, come from folks who are boots on the ground, dealing with something, rolling up their sleeves, and saying, I have a good idea. Well, at a company like Seismic size, we're a heck of a lot smaller than Google. That idea can translate into action, can translate into business impact pretty quickly. At bigger companies, you may not have that. You may be somebody who slots into a well defined process, who has very clear guardrails on when they can say yes or no, who has very clear operating instructions. That's attractive for a lot of people who say, I want clarity in my day to day. I want to know what to expect and I want to know what to do. I don't want to live in the gray. I need people at smaller companies to take responsibility and to live in the gray. Okay, well, we might not have a playbook on something. Is this something we should spend time playbooking? Maybe. Why don't you go do it? And I think it just kind of depends on the personality and what that person wants. I give a ton of flexibility, I give a ton of responsibility, and I look for people who have the attitude and aptitude to be able to say, put me in, coach, I've got it.
Beautiful. So Selena, tell us about your currently as a general counsel. How much of work, how much of your reliance is on AI, and what are you doing about it?
Yeah, so AI is an interesting topic. I'll say there's a couple of different AI lenses that I have. So there's the AI in the product. How do we build AI that brings value to our customers, that meets regulatory compliance requirements, and that is sellable, valuable, and successful? So there's the how to build AI component. Then there's the how do I use AI to make my legal team component or legal team more effective component. And then I actually lead our company's what we call the AI in Everything initiative, which is how do we enhance company operations? How do we think about doing things differently at a corporate wide level with this new technological evolution? And oh, by the way, how do we stay on top of that technological evolution? Because it is changing constantly. So I wear, I guess, three different hats in that regard. So it's super interesting. Talk about it every day. I use AI every day. And it's a space that I mentioned before, subject to a lot of regulatory scrutiny. And so, how do you stay on top of the regulatory whiplash? But also, how do you make sure that you're using the best of the best and that you're doing the things that are going to help you be more successful? I'm happy to chat more about AI, what we're doing on the legal team, how I look at it from a big enterprise perspective, and go deep wherever you want.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's because our audience want to know that. Yeah.
All of it. Okay, so on the legal team, we, gosh, 20, I want to say 2022, when all of the AI tools first started popping up, like the legal specific AI tools, my team was demoing them like crazy. We were probably testing an AI tool, a new one every month, doing proofs of concept. And what we were finding in the beginning is they frankly just weren't that good. They added more work to the plate to get right, and I needed something that could be adopted by my team. After a lot of trials and a lot of errors, the market I think had started to improve, and we ended up landing with GCAI, which is a tool that every single person on my team uses. I think some people probably use it like your standard chat GPT, let me ask it a question. But a lot of folks use it to run playbooks, to help with redlining, to review things, to do legal research. And that has been super effective. I had a call, I was prepping for a call with a vendor, and I had reviewed their terms before and had an idea of what was going on with this vendor. There were some hot button topics, and I needed just quick bullet points. And so I fed it all into GCAI and said, okay, help me write some bullet points and think through these couple of topics. It had been something I'd already been noodling on, but I wanted it there in front of me, more grounded. Great example, quick, dirty. I needed something at my fingertips, and this was much faster than trying to write it up myself. But there are all sorts of different interesting use cases, comparing different red lines, doing regulatory research, and later finding it. And so that's been a big one for us. We're also implementing a couple of other pieces of software that I won't name drop just yet until I know they're actually going to land for us and deliver value. But we're implementing a couple of other things as well that are pretty interesting. And then we use agents in various areas to help us find information, to answer FAQs, to help triage. So there's a lot of interesting things there. And I think the legal industry and AI in the legal industry is going to coalesce at some point. And my hope is that we get an end-to-end solution that allows for the intake piece of the puzzle to connect to the CLM piece of the puzzle, to connect to the analysis piece of the puzzle, in order to elevate the lawyers to that decision-making layer or that judgment layer and remove the sort of toil or grunt work layer that, frankly, in-house teams do more than outside counsel. So I'm pretty optimistic about the state of AI for legal teams in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's very powerful. When you spoke about using agents to do a lot of stuff, are those agents you're building custom agents yourself? Or are you buying something off the shelf?
We are building them ourselves. So we are a Microsoft shop and we use Copilot. And so we build our own Copilot agents for different things. I think that there are a lot of great uses for agents. I think you can connect them into different systems, but at its most fundamental, an agent is a little bot that you created for a specific purpose. You give it instructions that are more detailed, you limit its universe or you expand its universe, you give it instructions, you tell it to act like a certain role. And I found that to be pretty effective when you want to constrain its responses. And so, for example, if I want to know certain security protocols in our information security practices, I could have an agent that's dedicated to our security, and that reviews our SIG bundle, our standard information gathering bundle, and that is familiarized with only that set of materials. And then I can ask it questions. And that's something that I can set up without too much effort, but streamlines things a lot, especially, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of pages and detailed information and technical information really helps break that down. So we've got several different use cases. And then I think at an enterprise level, you start to think about, well, how do I string all of these together? How do I create different use cases? How do I connect them through your Workato recipes and automations or whatever your automation tool is? There's a lot of interesting things I think we can do from an enterprise efficiency perspective to help reduce that toil that employees face, or some of those challenges on how do I do X or where do I go for Y, by stringing a few different things together.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And these agents are being built by the legal team, or you take help from the engineering team to build those agents specifically for the legal team?
We do it ourselves. So
Nice.
we are, yeah. So, I mean, the nice thing about having an in-house team at a software company is all of us are relatively tech savvy. And so we can all do that ourselves. Now, if you want to take it to the next level and maybe integrate the agents with different systems and tools, then you will need to go to a technical expert, IT, engineering, business systems, whoever. But for some of the basics, we can do it ourselves.
Hmm. And since you are now so much equipped with AI and your teams are also very smart, tech savvy, building agents yourself, which a lot less legal team are doing, by the way. Let me tell you that because I've spoken to almost 45 plus journal counsels in the US. I had in podcasts with them. Uh, do you think your reliance on the outside counsel will keep on reducing?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, our outside counsel spend has gone down a lot. And that's not necessarily, like I said before, I actually think there's a time and place where calling the $2,000 an hour lawyer does make sense. And I'm not going to get AI to do that for me. That's not, I want to have the sort of more strategic, nuanced conversation than AI is going to be able to provide. But there is a lot that we can do ourselves. Some of it is just through the shifting of capacity. So somebody might be more efficient because they've reduced the toil or the manual labor at a lower level. And so now they have time to spend thinking and researching and, frankly, calling peers, networking on a certain topic. That's really valuable. So AI can help us that way, where it doesn't directly address the outside counsel spend problem, but it saves my in-house people time to go be the self-service lawyers that I know they can be. The other thing is you can start to get a workable knowledge on something through some of the more targeted research. Now, again, we're not filing briefs with AI cited cases over here. Everything we do is going to be high quality, and we have to make sure it is high quality, and we do check that. But there is a level of legal research and familiarization that you can do before maybe calling that outside counsel. So maybe something before would have taken, I don't know, 10 hours of billable time. It's now cut down to two. And that's a big cost saving. So as I've seen our spend over the years, uh, it's been incredible. In fact, we had some turnover on my team, gosh, at the start of this year, and we were able to keep the lights on, maintain business, keep the trains running on time. I think almost entirely because we had an AI solution implemented and in place that was helping folks make the most out of their days.
And you just perfectly summarized it because after my conversation with so many general counsels, a lot of them are saying we're doing a lot of stuff in-house and we're reducing our reliance on the outside counsel. So what's the future of the law firms then?
I mean, look, there's still value in having the strategic advice. I'm not going to go ask AI on how to deal with maybe an investor issue or an investor relations challenge or how to advise the board on certain topics that are sensitive. I'm just not there. I need the $2,000 an hour lawyer for some of those things. But I can cut down on my reliance of that $2,000 an hour lawyer, or more specifically, that lawyer's team. So it's not replacing the veteran partners who know, the regulatory landscape inside and out and have their eye on the ball for what's coming next. But it is probably to an extent replacing the mid to junior levels of their team.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And how much of trust do you have on these AI tools currently in 2025
How much trust? Um,
on the output?
yeah, I may get cited sources always, and I often do check those sources. It depends on what I'm doing. Do I need something to be extremely high quality? Less trust.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, is it something where my level is good enough and I just need, what we call the rowdy version? If I just need the rowdy version, it's probably fine. So I think it depends. That's the big thing about being in house. When I think about in house versus outside counsel difference, I'm a big believer in good enough and good enough for the situation at hand. Sometimes that means absolutely stellar and perfect, and sometimes that means rowdy. And AI is really helpful with rowdy.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. That's a great framework. Uh, what do you think how big is the currently team in Seismic, the legal team?
Oh gosh. Yeah, how big are we currently? 10? I should know this. I also have information security under me, so I
Okay.
think so that could be a little confusing when I look at my total org, but I think 10. We are
Mm-hmm.
hiring. We are hiring three more people, hopefully by the end of this calendar year. So we are seeing some expansion and growth on the team. But as you might imagine, some of that hiring I'm able to do because I've offset outside counsel spend due to efficiency gains that we have from processes, AI, just talent we have in place.
So are you hiring fresh law graduates or with some experience?
No, we're hiring some non-attorney legal professionals, so contracts managers, as well as some more senior attorneys. So I like to do a mixture. I want those heavy hitter, been there, done that, got the t-shirt type of folks. But I also like to offset with folks who are a little bit more up and coming. But a fresh law grad is tough for me to hire. I wish that wasn't the case, but we're a fully remote company. And so managing somebody who's so new can be challenging in a remote environment. And I would really encourage fresh law grads to go to places where they can get more hands-on in-person training. Because when I was coming up, my I think part of my career acceleration was actually the fact that I was the third associate in Gunderson Detmer's LA office, and we were all working in one room together. So there wasn't a call that happened, or a deal that happened, or an issue that came up that I wasn't involved in because I was sitting right there listening to everything. And that learning through osmosis was pretty impactful at an early career stage. So I would encourage folks who are just getting started to try and find an environment where they can absorb the knowledge from those around them.
Hmm. But do you think the since the first draft, the research, the basic level work can be done by an AI very easily, quickly, and that's what was being done by junior associates in the last few years, do you think the fresh law graduates will have difficulty finding jobs?
Potentially, the work and the evolution of the work will take time to evolve, especially at larger organizations. So institutions that have been around for a long time have a certain way of doing things. They probably aren't going to phase out their junior level employees anytime soon. There might be less need for the junior level employees, But I think when you talk to senior leaders and when you talk to managers and you talk to law firm partners, there is a recognition that even if an AI can help phase out some of that junior level work, we still need a talent pipeline. We still need people who 20 years from now are going to be that veteran partner, who knows everything inside and out. So I think there's still a desire from folks in the industry to build a talent pipeline. It might be that that talent pipeline looks a little bit different, that instead of doing signature packets for hours on end for a deal, pulling an all-nighter to compile signature packets, they're doing things that are maybe more value add. Maybe the talent pool shifts upwards. Maybe we get better lawyers out of this. I don't know the answer yet, but I don't think we should write off junior lawyers or junior level employees because we're going to need that talent pipeline.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if somebody is listening to this conversation right now who is a fresh law graduate in this year or next year, how would you suggest they should start their career? What should they focus on in 2025? They're starting their career fresh in the world of AI.
Mm. It's a good question. I think if they want to go to a law firm and they want to go do that big law stuff, I'd pick an industry or a practice area that's always going to be there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Something that maybe is durable.
Like
Bankruptcy.
like what?
Bankruptcy is always a fun one. I'm not a bankruptcy attorney. I sat on an unsecured creditors committee for a major bankruptcy case, and it was fantastic. I loved it. So, highly recommend checking out bankruptcy. Surprise. But there's always a need for bankruptcy lawyers. Or, I think something that could be interesting for folks who maybe are graduating law school and are thinking, I don't know about this practice of law for me. Legal operations is a space that is in very high demand right now. And so, folks who maybe are more technology minded, who can think about how to build out workflows using AI, who want to be more in the operations and systems of a legal function, that's an interesting area that has really taken off. And actually, I know quite a few GCs who are at their second or third companies that they've GC'd at, going in, building out a legal function, kind of like what I did at Seismic. They're at their next company or the company after that, and their first hire is a legal ops person. So
Mm.
I think there's a lot of opportunity because when you think about the challenges that GCs face, there are certainly the legal challenges, but there's also the operational challenges, and having somebody who can help you build out that infrastructure is really valuable, especially right now with AI. So it's a
Mm.
potential career avenue that I think, at least when I was coming up through the ranks, I had never heard of.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Interesting. This is a great piece of advice, Selena. Tell us, how do you handle work conflicts? Because you're talking to a bunch of internal clients, product teams, sales team, marketing teams. How do you ensure that you're with them and you're right?
Oh gosh. Uh, that's one of the biggest challenges of being a GC is when you're at a law firm, you are the business, right? You bill the company of the firm, revolves around your ability to please clients and high output. And if you're doing well, they love you. When you're in house, you're bottom of the stack. You've got salespeople who are the rock stars, the engineers who are the rock stars, the marketers who are the rock stars, and you're this back office function. And I'm being a little bit facetious, but in some ways it's true. I think for me, being able to add value early on was really important. And I was given opportunities to play to my strengths to make that clear. And of course, I came in already knowing the leadership team and the board. So I had a little bit in some ways, a home court advantage to making that value known. But for me, when I mentioned at the top of the call, get to know the business, this is a great example. I am adding so much more value if I know why the marketing team does certain things and I can talk to them. How do you operate? What are you trying to achieve? Okay, what do you have in place? What trade offs have you made? And I think there's a successful dialogue there. And I think coming from a place of help me understand your perspective lets people share their perspective. You learn something. Lawyers don't know everything, even though we often act like it. You learn something, they can educate you, and maybe at the end you're still like, this is the wrong thing to do, but they feel heard, they feel seen, and you worked on something and probably came up with a solution together. I think what's not successful is when there's sort of somebody behind the curtain telling you how to do your job. That's not very fun. Nobody likes that. I think when you can pick up the phone and have a conversation and really lean in, it makes a big difference. One of Seismic's values is seek to understand. So and I try to embrace that as much as possible. Understand the perspective of the other person. Understand the issue they're facing. Understand the why behind all of this and what's already been tried. And then you can brainstorm a solution together. But I don't want to inflict, I want to enable.
Hmm. That's very powerful. Somebody told me that people want to work with you uh, not when they understand you, but when they feel understood. So it's important that the people feel understood, and then they want to come and work with you. Tell us about the since you mentioned that your company entirely is 100% remote. How are you taking care of privacy and confidentiality and these issues as a GC?
Yeah, so I should clarify, we do have offices all over. But I think most of our company is remote. Maybe 20% is near an office in the US. Internationally, we do have a stronger office presence, but across the US, we're primarily remote. Um, we do trainings. Part of our ethos is customer centricity, and to me, customer centricity means high security, high confidentiality, high data protection, high integrity. And so I emphasize integrity. We do, of course, lots of trainings, sometimes to meet regulatory requirements, but a lot of times because it's just the right thing to do. And so really instilling that ethos and that culture of integrity and responsibility of employee or with employees, I think is key to success when you're doing this in such a distributed environment. And of course, we have incredible information security practices as well.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about what legacy you want to leave, Selena, when we leave this world.
Gosh, that's a tough question. Um, I think that while I'm always happy to grab a mic and take center stage, I am a really good support player. I am an incredible cheerleader. I am an awesome teammate. I am really good at supporting the person. And so I think maybe that's what I want my legacy to be. Somebody who was impactful and helped others, somebody who made others feel good and who supported them during more difficult or challenging times, an incredible partner to my partner, and a great daughter to my mother, a good family member, a killer friend to all of my friends who needed me, um, and generally just a badass.
That's very powerful. And if let's say you have to fire somebody in the organization, I'm sure you would have had those deals, and it conflicts with your wish to be a great person and a great supporter, a great mentor. How do you handle those conflicts when you have to, let's say, let go somebody?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that not every person is right for every role at every company and every stage of life. Sometimes the company makes that decision, and sometimes the employee makes that decision. Regardless, we cheer them on their next adventure. And to me, it doesn't help people to keep them in an environment where they're not succeeding. I think it's almost inhumane to trap somebody or to keep somebody in a position that's not right for them. I want people to be able to succeed. And when somebody isn't succeeding, it's not because they're a bad person or lazy or any of those things. They just haven't quite found the right role. And I think a lot of times the right thing to do is to give them that push to help them go find it and be kind and be considerate on the way out.
That's very powerful. Selena, thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed our conversation. A lot of these tips and a lot of this wisdom that you have given to us today will be very valuable for a lot of people who are pursuing their law career in law, young lawyers, even lawyers in their mid early 30s, mid 30s, to how to do the transcend from where they are to a GC level. And really thank you for the authenticity and for sharing all wisdom with us without any filters. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the